Welcome back. Let's touch base with Escorts. Rohtash Mal, Executive Director and CEO of the company, joins us on the show. Now, remember, the company has shown quite a bit of a transfer performance in the past few quarters. The dominant agri-machinery segment doing fairly well as well. But monsoons have hit on time. Is this a big positive? And how does the auto space look like going ahead? Let's start the discussion with Mr. Mal. Mr. Mal, thanks so much for joining in on Corporate Insider. I mean, you would have guessed my first question. We've been talking to almost the IMD, almost all the auto companies on how big a positive, in sentiment at least, if not more, is the monsoon arrival on time for auto companies. Big positive, you think, this time around?
Yes, I think early indications are that we are looking at 98-99% monsoon performance. It's just not the volume of rain, but the distribution. But with that, the early showers, the onset of the monsoon in Kerala, Bay of Bengal, even Delhi has received some drops here and there. Bihar has received rains. So the early indications are positive, and it bodes well, it augurs well for the future.
Give me a sense, Mr. Mal. Do you suspect that, or do you believe that you as a company would see a sharp rise in your capacity utilization if monsoon is indeed good? Because it improved quite a bit compared to the kind of lows, but you're still at fairly low levels, 50% or thereabouts. You think that can show a bit of an uptick if monsoon is fine?
Not 50. We are close on to about 63% now.
Fair enough.
And in some months, almost touching capacity. But yes, if the monsoons are good, that would be one contributing factor to better performance. Better performance of this sector, the agri sector, and I speak on behalf of the tractor community also, will come from the kind of signals that the government provides on the minimum support price. You might recall last year we had what you might call a failed monsoon, or not such a great monsoon, but sales of the tractor industry were very good. Now that's because the government had given signals in time, the minimum support prices were looked at, and if you do not look at tonnage, which actually was a bit of a loss in that period, the actual income, the overall output of the sector in terms of income actually grew by close on to 10.5%. So it's just not monsoon, it is monsoon signals coupled with government signals on how they intend to support agriculture, how the retail finance looks up. There are 3 or 4 variables that come together, and personally speaking, monsoon, while it is positive, I also see good signs emanating from the state governments and the central government in terms of the kind of actions that are on the ground today for supporting agriculture.
In fact,
now back to your question, you talked about capacity utilization.
Please.
Our capacity utilizations, as I said, are more in the 60+ range now, overall speaking, annual capacity, and I expect that to sharply improve in the days ahead.
Great. In fact, I was happy to hear your tone, Mr. Mal, considering the fact that a lot of companies are now saying that they do not want to be perceived as a company which will do well only if the monsoons are there. And you, of course, have your other sectors also performing very well. FY11 as a year, a lot of people believe that there will be a delta swing, if I can use that term, in earnings because of the fact that interest costs have come down, debt has come down, and your capacity is in place. You think a fair assessment?
Well, speaking in generic terms, without any forward numbers, that is better than a fair assessment. Things are looking very positive indeed.
All right. Give me a flavor of how your agri-machinery business would do this year, because while we're talking about monsoon, so on and so forth, that has been the dominant force, I believe, for Escorts. Would the momentum continue into the first 2 quarters as well as for FY11?
The first 2 quarters were indeed very good. Last time we spoke, Neeraj, we did very, very positive growth in numbers. Given the monsoon and the support that the government is beginning to provide to this sector, I see no reason why this should let up in the months ahead. So I have an extremely positive outlook on the next few months, indeed, for this fiscal.
Great. I just want to wrap up this discussion, Mr. Mal, by talking to you about the railway equipment division, and not necessarily because of the contribution that it has to your revenues, but because of the contribution that it does to your profits. If indeed that contribution increases, the total revenue contribution, I believe it contributes 25% of your profits, would that be a big kicker in possibly FY11, FY12 as well, if indeed that contribution goes up from the railway equipment division?
No, not only does it contribute handsomely, it is poised to contribute even more handsomely. Please remember, Neeraj, that we are in 3 nation-building activities: agriculture, transportation, i.e. railways, and construction equipment. All these are sectors that are building India for the future. Given the ground conditions as well as the sectors we operate in, is the reason why I said our outlook is extremely positive. That's the sense of optimism that we have. Sorry, one more thing I did fail to mention. A lot of initiatives centered around human productivity and cost productivity that are currently on in escorts. Now that adds to whatever the environment is adding in terms of buoyancy.
Oh, I'm sure of that, because almost all the reports that I read, Mr. speak about this being the dominant thing at escorts. But we wish you all the best with those efforts as well. And hopefully the monsoon brings some cheer, more cheer to you as a company. Many thanks for joining us on ETNow and Corporate Insider today.
Thank you for your good.
That was
Thanks for your good.
escorts sounding fairly bullish on the prospects in FY11. Never mind, monsoon, no monsoon should not be a problem. The growth rate should continue. Remember, the company has been fairly well. All right, before